Hi, I'm Joel Persinger from Practical Defense Systems with a discussion on some things we should think about when choosing the guns that we might carry and how we might set that up. Now look, I'm going to start off by saying this is my opinion based upon decades of carrying a gun, 4 decades of carrying a gun, and 2 decades of teaching concealed carry courses and that kind of stuff. And so your opinion may be different, that's fine. This is just my opinion, so check your ego at the door and don't freak out, okay? Your mileage may vary and that's perfectly fine. This opinion is also just to address what I see all the time at concealed carry courses. I just wrapped up teaching one for the San Diego County Sheriff's Department yesterday. In California, which is kind of wonky, let's put it that way, there are requirements for your concealed carry permit that aren't in other states, most other states actually, one of which is that you're going to list the guns you carry on that permit, and you have to qualify with all of them. And the practical application of that is that as an instructor, I get to see what people plan to carry because they have to qualify with them in front of me. And so what I've seen over the last couple of decades is that they fall into 2 groups most of the time. The group that has 1 gun on their permit, and that's it. Or the folks that already own a whole bunch of guns, when they get a permit, so they just put them all on their permit. And either of those strategies works just fine. I want to just share with you something my father used to teach me. He was a deputy sheriff, and before that he was a Korean-era war veteran. And he used to say that it's a good idea to plan out a little bit the guns that you plan to carry in such a way that you have an approach that makes logical sense to you. And so these are the guns I'm just going to show you here. These are the guns that I carry the most. Most often I carry either this Smith & Wesson M&P Shield in 9mm, or I carry one of these 2 snubby revolvers. Both are .38 Special. This is an airweight. This is a full weight steel gun. And so most of the time I carry the airweight just because it's lighter and it's easier and so on. But they're both .38 Special and they both use the same speed loaders, and that's the point. If you have a gun, you only have 1 gun on your permit, for example, and you're in a state like California where you actually have to list them. Or maybe you only have 1 gun you carry regularly. God forbid you have to defend yourself with that gun. Obviously you're not going to keep it because it's going to be taken as evidence in a shooting while the investigation proceeds to find out if what you did was appropriate and legal and so on. Now you have defended yourself against potentially some violent criminal. That violent criminal has friends who don't like you anymore and you have no gun to carry. That's the first problem. The second problem is if you're used to carrying 1 gun all the time, which I carry, either the revolver or the small 9mm auto all the time, and I shoot with them all the time at the range as a result and practice with them, then all of a sudden that gun is gone and you have to start carrying an entirely different gun. Do you have a holster for that gun? Do you have a way to carry a reload? Have you trained with that gun? Have you practiced with that holster? Is that holster comfortable? Does that work for you? All these questions come into view. You weren't thinking about that because you hadn't had to use your gun to defend yourself. My father's theory was this: have 2 of the same gun. Because if 1 gun goes away, he used to say, look, if I get in a shooting at work and they take 1 gun for the investigation, I got to go back to work. This is when cops were cops in smaller areas of the country, smaller departments. And it was in the late 50s, early 60s when they didn't have big investigations at small departments. They just told you to go back to work, you put another gun in your holster, and off you went. Well, if that's the case, you wanted a gun that fit the same holster. You wanted a gun that was the same caliber. You wanted a gun that accepted the same speed loaders because police officers carried revolvers back then. And that way you could just swap guns out because the other one had already been taken for the investigation into the officer-involved shooting. But the officer needed to get back on patrol. Well, in your case, you're not a police officer perhaps, but you want to be able to defend yourself wherever you go, so it's a good idea to do that. Now, if I look at the revolvers, for example, now these are 2 different revolvers. One has an exposed hammer and one does not. I generally carry the airweight without the exposed hammer just for convenience and because it draws slicker than snot. But either way, both of these guns fit, as you can see, into the same holster. They use the same speed loader. They have the same caliber of ammunition the same capability of firing ammunition. The speed loader, because it's the same speed loader, fits into the same speed loader pouch. So if, for example, as I said, God forbid, I'm carrying the air weight one day and I have to defend myself with the air weight, and then it's taken because it was involved in a shooting, then if I want to carry a revolver, I can just simply pick up the full size when I get home, put it back in the same holster, the same ammunition, and everything applies. With that in mind, since I only have one Smith & Wesson M&P Shield, yesterday after I got done teaching on the range, they have another one there, so I went ahead and paid for it. And in 10 days, I got to wait the 10-day wait, which is kind of silly, but I have to wait the 10-day wait. And when I get it, I'm going to order another Crimson Trace laser grip, just like the one I have on this one, so that the guns are identical. The manual of arms is the same, the equipment is the same, and they will fit both in the pocket holster I use and the strong side hip holster I use, and both of them take the same mags. So it's something to think about. If you only have one gun on your permit, maybe you buy another one exactly like that one, and then everything, all your other equipment for that weapon fits, and you don't have to rethink it. You don't have to buy a bunch of different stuff. If you need to change guns because one of them has been used and needs to go with a police department, it's part of an investigation, it's just a matter of picking up the other one, loading it up, and sticking it back in your holster. I hope this helps. There's many other reasons to carry many other types of guns. I get that. I just wanted to address this one issue, and perhaps it'll at least start you thinking about what guns you might carry and how you might think through the process of replacing one on your person if it gets taken because you had to use it.